Hey everyone, and welcome to another Deep Dives. This one's going out to all you Vintage Car Chronicles listeners over on Spotify.
Yeah, what's up, everybody?
Today, we're diving deep into the Porsche 944.
Ooh, a good one.
We're going to peel back the layers of this legendary sports car, see what made it tick, why it still resonates with enthusiasts today. You know, it's funny, when you think about the late 70s and early 80s,
Big hair, shoulder pads.
exactly.
Yeah.
Disco was king, and the automotive world was in a state of flux.
Things were changing.
Yeah, and Porsche's icon, the 911.
Ah, the 911.
Starting to show its age a bit. They needed something fresh, something exciting to capture the spirit of the times.
They needed to shake things up.
And that's where the 944 enters the picture.
It's interesting, though, because the 944's story doesn't actually begin with the 944.
Oh, tell me more.
It starts with, well, a bit of controversy, actually.
Controversy, huh? I like where this is going.
It all begins with the Porsche 924, intended as a more affordable entry-level Porsche.
Okay, the 924. I remember that one.
But it wasn't exactly embraced with open arms, especially by die-hard Porsche enthusiasts.
I see. So the 924, not exactly a fan favorite.
Not initially, no.
I've heard whispers about the 924 not being a true Porsche, something about Volkswagen being involved.
You're right on the money with that.
So what's the story there? Give us the juicy details.
Well, it's a tale of collaboration, shifting priorities, and a bit of automotive intrigue.
I knew there had to be more to it.
So picture this. Early 1970s.
Right, setting the scene.
The 924 was initially a joint project between Porsche and Volkswagen.
Interesting. So a joint project, huh?
Yep. They planned for it to replace the 914. They even considered the design for an Audi model.
Wow, so it could have been an Audi instead.
It almost was. But then Volkswagen, they backed out of the project.
Oh, why'd they do that?
Priorities changed. They decided to focus on their own front-wheel drive models, like the Golf.
Okay, that makes sense. So Porsche's left holding this, well, half-baked project.
Well, not exactly. They saw an opportunity.
They did. What kind of opportunity?
They realized they had a gap in their own lineup for a more affordable entry-level sports car.
Ah, so they took this, let's call it a Volkswagen-influenced design, and decided to make it a Porsche.
Exactly.
That makes sense why some of the diehards might have been a bit skeptical.
Oh, yeah. There were definitely some raised eyebrows.
So they had the design, but what about the heart of the car?
Ah, you mean the engine.
Exactly. Was it up to Porsche standards?
Well, that was another point of contention. The 924 had a four-cylinder engine sourced from Audi.
Ooh, an Audi engine in a Porsche. That must have ruffled some feathers.
It did. Now, to be fair, the engine itself was reliable, fuel-efficient, which was important at the time.
Okay, so points for practicality.
But it lacked the performance, the raw power that people expected from a Porsche.
I can see how that wouldn't sit well with the purists. So it sounds like the 924, it had the looks, but maybe not the heart to match the badge.
You could say that.
So how did the 944 address these shortcomings?
Well, the 944 was conceived as a true evolution of the 924.
Evolution, interesting. So like taking the good and making it even better.
Precisely. They wanted to create a pure driver's car, a Porsche, in every sense of the word. And to do that, they knew they needed a proper engine.
Makes sense. So what did they do? Just try and squeeze more power out of that existing four-cylinder?
No, they went much further than that. They ripped out that old Audi engine and gave the 944 a brand new heart. A 2.5-liter inline-4.
Ah, a fresh start. So a Porsche designed and built engine this time.
Absolutely. Completely designed and engineered in-house by Porsche. And get this new engine was essentially derived from half of the 928's V8 engine.
Wait, what? They took a V8, chopped it in half, and made a four-cylinder out of it.
Pretty much. They shared the bore spacing, some key design elements. Talk about clever engineering.
That's wild. Okay, so they addressed the engine issue. But inline fours, they can be a bit rough, right? How did Porsche ensure this thing was smooth enough for a true driver's car?
Well, they were determined to make this a world-class sports car. They knew about the vibration issues inherent to inline fours, and they had a solution. Balance shafts.
Balance shafts. I'm not familiar with that.
They licensed the technology from Mitsubishi.
Interesting. So what do these balance shafts do exactly?
They're basically rotating shafts with these weighted lobes that counteract the engine's natural imbalances. So you end up with this remarkably smooth and refined power delivery.
Really? So it's almost like having a six-cylinder smoothness in a four-cylinder package.
That's the idea.
It's amazing how much thought and engineering went into making this seemingly simple four-cylinder engine such a technical marvel.
It was a game changer.
But the innovations didn't stop there, right? There was something special about the 944's layout, too.
You're thinking of the transaxle design.
The transaxle. Okay, for those of us who aren't gearheads, remind us what that is and why it matters.
Sure, so instead of having the transmission bolted directly to the engine like in most cars, the 944's transmission is mounted at the rear of the car, integrated with the differential.
Okay, so engine up front, transmission in the back.
Yeah.
That's got to do something for the car's balance.
Bingo. The transaxle layout allows for a near-perfect weight distribution, something like 50.7% front, 49.3% rear.
That's pretty close to perfect.
Right. And this balanced weight distribution, that was one of the key secrets to the 944's renowned handling. It was incredibly predictable, planted, confidence-inspiring whether you were carving canyons or on the track.
So we've got a sleek new design, a cleverly engineered, powerful engine, and this unique transaxle setup that makes the car handle like a dream. It sounds like the 944 was off to a pretty amazing start, but every car goes through an evolution, right? What happened next in the 944's story?
Well, that's where things get even more exciting. The 944's journey was marked by constant refinement and innovation. It went through a series of updates and new models that pushed the boundaries even further.
Ooh, new models and updates. All right, I'm ready for the next chapter.
Let's dive in.
So new models and updates. So give us the highlights of the 944's evolution.
Well, Porsche, they were always listening to feedback, always looking for ways to improve. Like in 1985, they came out with a pretty significant refresh for the 944.
85, okay. What did they change?
One of the most noticeable things was the interior. They modernized it, gave it a more, I guess you'd say, a more contemporary feel.
Ah, yeah, the oval dash.
Exactly. The
Yeah.
oval dash, updated door panels, it definitely gave the interior that cool 80s vibe.
Yeah, very 80s, very stylish. So knee dash, what else?
Oh, there were a bunch of other improvements too. They integrated the radio antenna better so it wasn't so, sticking out. They beefed up the alternator so the electrical system was more robust, increased the oil capacity to help with engine longevity, and even gave it a bigger fuel tank so you could drive further between fill-ups.
Sounds like they were focusing on making the 944 a more livable, everyday sports car, not just a weekend toy.
Yeah. Exactly. They wanted it to be both fun and practical.
Smart move. But okay, let's talk performance.
Yeah.
1986, that's when the 944 Turbo arrived.
You got it. The 944 Turbo, or 951 as it was known internally, it was a real game changer. Took the 944 from a great sports car to a serious performance machine.
Yeah, the Turbo, that was a big deal. So how much power are we talking here?
Well, that turbocharged 2.5-liter engine, it packed a punch. 220 horsepower in the European version. The U.S. models had a bit less, thanks to those pesky emissions regulations.
Ah, yes, emissions regulations. The bane of many a performance car. But still, 220 horsepower, that's a huge jump. What did that do for the car's, a straight line speed?
It was a rocket. I think Car and Driver, back in the day, they clocked it at 0 to 60 in like 5.9 seconds.
Wow, under 6 seconds. That's moving. They must have done more than just slap a turbo on the engine, right? All that extra power, you need to make sure the rest of the car can handle it.
Oh, absolutely. They beefed up the gearbox, strengthened the axles to handle the extra torque, upgraded the brakes with bigger units borrowed from the 911, and tweaked the suspension, made it a bit stiffer, more responsive for those spirited drives. Even the looks got a bit more aggressive. Integrated front bumper, that distinctive rear spoiler.
So they turned it into a proper track weapon. Very cool. It's impressive how they addressed every aspect of the car, made sure that the power didn't compromise the balance and the drivability.
Porsche engineers, they don't mess around.
They don't. But I'm curious, did they ever offer a naturally aspirated engine that could, keep up with the turbo in terms of performance?
They did. In 1987, they introduced the 944S. The S stood for super.
The Super 944. Nice.
Yeah.
What made it so super?
Well, it was all about high-revving, naturally aspirated power. They kept the 2.5-liter displacement, but they gave it a more sophisticated dual overhead camshaft design, 4 valves per cylinder.
Okay, so better breathing, higher revs, more power.
You got it. It made 190 horsepower. Not quite turbo territory, but it was a blast to drive. That linear power delivery, it was something special.
So 1985, the big refresh. 86, the turbo arrives. 87, the Super 944. It seems like they were constantly refining and improving the 944. What came next?
Well, in 1988, they decided to take the turbo and, turn it up to 11.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
They introduced the 944 Turbo S.
Ah, the Turbo S, the ultimate 944.
It was something else. They squeezed even more power out of that turbocharged engine, 250 horsepower thanks to a bigger turbocharger, and some fancy engine management wizardry.
250 horsepower. That's what, like a 30 horsepower jump over the regular turbo?
Yep, and to handle all that power, they gave it an upgraded suspension, adjustable Coney shocks, stiffer springs, bigger anti-roll bars. It was a serious driver's car.
It was a beast. The fastest four-cylinder production car in the world at that time, right?
That's right. Porsche, they took a four-cylinder engine and made it a world beater. And then, as if that wasn't enough, in 1989, they rolled out the 944 S2.
Another S model. What was special about this one?
The S2, that was all about naturally aspirated power and refinement. It got a brand new 3.0-liter engine.
Hold on. A 3.0-liter four-cylinder. That's huge for a four-banger.
It was the biggest production four-cylinder in the world at that time. And smooth, powerful, torquey, 211 horsepower.
It must have been a real pleasure to drive.
It was a true gentleman's express. So by this point, the 944 lineup was pretty diverse, right? You had the base model, the turbo, the super, now the S2. Something for everyone.
Yeah, 944 for every taste. But I have a feeling they weren't done yet, were they?
You know Porsche, they always have something up their sleeve. Remember that cabriolet concept they showed off back in '85?
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures. It was gorgeous.
Well, in 1990, they made it a reality. Launched the 944 S2 Cabriolet, open-top driving with the performance and refinement of the S2.
Oh, man. That must have been an amazing driving experience. Top down, wind in your hair, that 3.0-liter engine singing. It seems like Porsche was determined to offer a 944 for everyone. But knowing them, I'm guessing they had one more trick up their sleeve.
They did. In 1991, the final year of the 944's production run, they introduced the 944 Turbo Cabriolet.
No, that's what I call going out with a bang.
Right. The Turbo S engine, 250 horsepower in the sleek cabriolet body. It was the ultimate expression of the 944. Powerful, stylish, exhilarating.
The perfect swan song for an iconic car. So we've seen the 944 evolve from those somewhat controversial beginnings with the 924 to becoming this true automotive icon with a model for just about every enthusiast. But the 944 story, it doesn't end there, does it? This car, it also had a pretty successful racing career.
Oh, absolutely. The 944 wasn't just a pretty face. It was a fierce competitor on the racetrack. And it's got a racing pedigree to prove it.
That's right. The 944 wasn't just a stunner on the road. It was
Yeah.
a beast on the track.
Oh, yeah. The 944 made its mark on racing history. For sure proved it could hang with the best.
So let's talk racing. What were some of the 944's most notable achievements in motorsports?
Well, it was competitive in a whole bunch of different series, from the SCCA production class and Trans Am series here in the US to the Porsche 944 Turbo Cup, which was a one-make championship.
Okay, let's start with SCCA and Trans Am. Those are some pretty legendary racing series. What kind of competition was the 944 up against?
We're talking about going head-to-head with American muscle cars, Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes. Those were the big dogs back then.
Wow. So how did this European sports car stack up against those V8 powerhouses?
It actually did surprisingly well. Teams like Rick Hurst Racing and Carlson Racing, they really knew how to get the most out of the 944. And they racked up some impressive wins, showed the world that the 944 could compete and even beat the competition.
I bet those victories helped to solidify the 944's reputation as a true performance car, not just some stylish coupe.
For sure, it proved that the 944 was more than just good looks.
Okay, now tell me about this Porsche 944 Turbo Cup. Sounds like it was pretty intense.
Oh yeah. Picture this. A whole grid of identical 944 turbos, all prepped for racing, all the drivers on a level playing field. It all came down to skill.
Wow, that must have been some exciting racing. So what made these Turbo Cup cars special?
They were stripped-down racing machines. They took the 944 Turbo and got rid of anything that wasn't absolutely necessary for speed. Lightweight racing seats, no air conditioning, no sound deadening. They even took out the back seats.
Sounds hardcore. So these were basically track-focused 944s. Anything else special about them?
They also had upgraded engines, suspensions, brakes. These things were serious weapons.
So they took an already great car and made it even faster for the track.
That's awesome.
Is the 944 Turbo Cup still around today?
Not in its original form, but the 944 is still a popular choice for spec racing series.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah.
So the 944 is still out there competing today.
Yep, and that kind of speaks to the legacy of the 944. It's not just a car, it's a phenomenon.
So what do you think of the lasting impact of the 944? What did it mean for Porsche and how is it viewed by enthusiasts today?
Well, for Porsche, the 944 was a huge success. It actually became their best-selling model for a while. until the Boxster and the 997 generation 911 came along.
Wow, that's saying something. Sounds like the 944 really helped to keep Porsche going strong during a time when the 911 was going through some changes.
Definitely. And it helped to broaden Porsche's appeal.
Yeah.
Back then, Porsche was really known for the 911, which was seen as this very exclusive, expensive sports car.
Right.
But the 944, it was more accessible, more affordable. It opened the door to a whole new generation of Porsche enthusiasts.
So the 944 brought new blood into the Porsche family.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What about today? Where does the 944 stand in the world of classic cars?
It's still a popular choice, and it's relatively affordable compared to other classic Porsches. It's a great way to get into the Porsche experience without spending a fortune.
That's great to hear. So for anyone out there dreaming of owning a Porsche, the 944 is still a great option.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic car with a rich history and a lot to offer.
Well, there you have it, listeners. We've taken a deep dive into the world of the Porsche 944, from its humble beginnings to its racing glory and its enduring legacy. It's a story of innovation, performance, and pure driving passion.
And the best part, the story of the 944 is still being written, thanks to the enthusiasts who keep these cars on the road and on the track.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the Porsche 944. Remember to tune in to Vintage Car Chronicles on Spotify every day for more stories from the world of classic cars. Until next time, keep the passion for cars alive.